Welcome to Cryptic Library, where the shadows come alive and every story is a descent into the unknown. Here, we unravel spine-chilling tales crafted to keep you on the edge of your seat. From dark horror that will haunt your dreams to eerie creepypasta that whispers secrets of the supernatural, each story draws you deeper into the terrifying realms of the Cryptic Library. So, if you crave tales that chill, disturb, and intrigue, hit that subscribe button, grab a light if you dare, and step inside. The Obsessive Cleaner. The day I hired Sophie, I thought I'd just found a reliable housekeeper. She was efficient, quiet, and had a knack for leaving everything spotless. What I didn't know was that Sophie had a secret obsession, a dark desire lurking behind her pleasant smile. I was a bachelor, living alone in a modest but comfortable two-bedroom house on the edge of town. Between my job and my lack of interest in domestic chores, things had gotten cluttered. Sophie came highly recommended by a friend, so I figured I'd give her a shot. When she arrived for the interview, she seemed, well, perfectly ordinary. She was polite, a little shy, but with a gentle smile and an eager attitude. Within a few days, Sophie had transformed my house into a pristine sanctuary. No dust lingered on surfaces, no dishes piled up in the sink, and the floors seemed to gleam in appreciation. But it wasn't long before I started noticing strange, small changes that left me feeling unsettled. It began with little things. An odd draft in my bedroom despite closed windows, or the haunting sensation of being watched. I shook it off as paranoia. I'd just never had anyone else in my space before, and I figured it would take some getting used to. One day, I noticed my toothbrush was wet before I'd used it, as if someone else had handled it. I convinced myself Sophie had merely been cleaning the bathroom and brushed it off. Then, a small stack of my mail was missing from the coffee table. I searched around, annoyed, but when I asked Sophie, she calmly claimed she hadn't seen it. I tried to dismiss it as my own forgetfulness, but something nagged at me. It was a week later that I found my hairbrush tucked neatly in my underwear drawer, which was bizarre enough. When I pulled it out, I noticed something even stranger. All the hair tangled in the bristles was gone. A shiver ran down my spine, but I brushed it off as another odd cleaning habit. Maybe she was overly thorough. At least that's what I told myself. The following morning, I woke up with a dull ache in my chest. I felt sluggish and drained, almost as if a fog had settled over my mind. As I staggered into the bathroom, I noticed a faint bruise on my chest, right over my heart, a bruise I had no memory of getting. It was in the shape of a thumbprint, and as I traced its outline, my skin prickled with unease. Sophie arrived that day, all smiles and warmth. Watching her work was unsettling now. Her silence had taken on a new quality, like an eerie stillness. She never asked personal questions, but I caught her glancing at me with a faint, almost possessive look. When she left that evening, I decided to follow her routine closely, trying to catch any hint of what might be going on. I kept my eyes open, but found nothing amiss. Then, I noticed something in my bedroom, tucked discreetly behind a row of books on my shelf. It was a small, hand-sewn doll, crudely made and stitched together with scraps of fabric. But what really made my skin crawl was its hair, dark, thick strands that matched mine perfectly, woven into the doll's head. My throat tightened as I examined it. Pinned to its chest was a scrap of fabric with a faint, lipstick-stained kiss. The doll's mouth had been stitched into a wide, twisted grin, and when I touched it, my chest ached as if the bruise pulsed in response. Panicking, I placed the doll back on the shelf, half hoping it would just disappear by itself. Maybe Sophie was a bit eccentric, I thought. Maybe she just liked to collect things, and I was reading too much into it. But I could feel something sinister and possessive brewing, something far beyond a normal obsession. The next day, Sophie was back, and as she worked, she seemed almost giddy, her movements brisk and filled with purpose. I watched her carefully, waiting for any sign that she was aware of my discovery, but her calm smile never wavered. That night, my dreams were feverish and filled with strange images. I saw Sophie, her fingers hovering over my chest, pressing down as though claiming something precious. Her voice drifted through my consciousness like poisoned honey, murmuring phrases I couldn't understand. I woke up gasping, drenched in cold sweat, clutching my chest as the bruise throbbed beneath my palm. The following morning, Sophie showed up as usual, carrying a small, colorful box wrapped in ribbon. "I brought you a gift," she said, eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. I hesitated but accepted it, feeling my hands grow cold around the box. Inside was another doll, nearly identical to the first but with a small heart embroidered on its chest. "Thank you," I muttered, uncertain. Her eyes seemed to flicker with triumph as she turned away, her soft humming filling the air with an otherworldly melody. I watched her, the eerie quiet settling over the room like a burial shroud. That night after Sophie left, I sat staring at the doll she'd given me, paralyzed by a mixture of curiosity and fear. The bruise on my chest had spread, darker now and more defined. It throbbed painfully every time I looked at the doll. Desperate to understand, I finally called the friend who had recommended her. "Sophie?" he replied, confusion lacing his voice. "I never suggested anyone by that name. In fact, I thought you were just managing on your own." A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. Who was Sophie? Where had she come from, and why had I felt compelled to let her into my life? Panic clawed at my mind as I remembered the dolls, the stolen hair, and the bruise that had appeared out of nowhere. That night as I lay in bed, I could feel her presence, like a cold shadow pressing down on my chest. In the void of night, her words slithered through the air like frost. "You're mine," they breathed, sweet and chilling. I wanted to run, but my body refused to move, trapped in a frozen state. When morning came, Sophie was gone. Her number was disconnected, and there was no sign of her ever having been in my home. But the dolls remained, and the bruise on my chest had grown darker, forming into the shape of her hand. And every night since, I can feel her pressing down on my chest, her voice seeping through the shadows like black ink, binding me to her, forever.